Okay. So did we want to list some of the exceptions? And then,
I think we should.
right, I mean, do we want to put a limit on the panels that they can repair? Because I think not putting a limit on it, you know, I mean, not that we want to babysit every single resident. You know, maybe 4 panels max, 6
Well,
panels max.
Quite honestly, I mean, somebody could be replacing panels. If they don't pull the posts, then replacing the panels shouldn't matter. I wouldn't think, because they're not moving the fence anywhere. They're just
Right.
replacing panels.
Right.
I mean, this could get quite late.
Right. Okay, so like, for example, my yard right now, I need to replace all my posts. The panels are all fine,
Uh-huh.
but I need to repair every single post. So I'm gonna have to take it all down, all the panels down,
Uh-huh.
basically, because the posts are, instead of being straight, they're like this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to repair every post. So would you consider that?
You know, if you're gonna have to repair every post, I would think that's replacing the fence.
Right.
But if you only have to repair a couple of posts.
Right, and then, I mean over exaggerating just for this,
Yeah.
but I think I probably only need to replace 3 posts.
Yeah, I would say it's less than 5 posts. That's a repair.
Right.
If you're replacing all the posts or majority, maybe a majority of the posts,
Right,
it's considered
Right.
something different.
right, and that's why I was saying, Mr. Gray.
I personally feel that here are motion from residents. For example, I have dog ear panel, 6 feet. They rot at the bottom because of the water issue.
Right,
Okay. Why can't I go to mine?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Why cannot I apply, go get a new one, but vinyl, the post are fine, but all the rock.
Because that's rebuilding, that would fall under the rebuilding. If you're replacing with wood, for going from wood to vinyl, I would personally say that is a new fence, because you're changing materials.
Well, here's another thought concerning that. It depends on what he does. There are some vinyl fence that you slide the post over the 4x4 post. So therefore, he's not moving the fence. It's a thought. See what I'm saying? It's a touchy thing.
Yeah,
But I would suggest that that's the case, like my case, I already have a permit on file for the survey. So to notify you, say I'm gonna replace my fence.
does that fall under what?
Would that fall under the new criteria D, since I already have a survey, I'm going to file and permit pulled back in 2006.
Yeah, I mean, that, you already have the permit, so you would be able to.
Replace all the dog ear panels with vinyl. Of course, the slip law.
Without getting a new permit.
Does a permit have an expiration on it?
1 year.
1 year?
But the example is, I've already gone with channels. I had the survey done, I already pulled the permit. If I, as a resident, wanted to switch to the vinyl, Morris, new style with a slip over post and the panel and the J channel and the panels.
Because really, I think the permit, the big deal about that is they send somebody out to the service department to verify what the property pins
Pins
are,
are.
to make sure you don't go over the property line. So if somebody like Mr. Gray's done that and their posts are already there, so that's been approved, why would he have to pull another permit?
Because it expired.
Yeah, I understand it expired, but no, is that repair, place? But they already know where the property pins are. As opposed to, if you have to, like I said earlier, let's say if you have to replace less than 50% of the posts, that's because of rot.
Right.
That could be a repair, not a replacement, as long as the posts go back where the old ones were. There's a lot of, and I did a lot of research, and I sent you ladies and Rob a kind of a compilation of everything I could find about fences, because that led me to the other topic. In our code, I couldn't find anywhere where any city ordinances said a privacy fence can be on the property line, except in one section of ours. It says in parentheses, it's a, where's it at?
In 1252:11, which is the residential district, 1252,
Bear with me.
number 11. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
C1, the last line says a fence may be placed directly on the property line
Okay.
between two parcels.
I stand corrected.
Yes.
I was looking for that like crazy, couldn't find it.
Mhm.
But I did find, for example, there were a couple of the other city ordinances throughout the county where they said, when that is the case, one community required the neighbors sign off. And that you can't put double fences back to back.
Correct.
So, because that creates a problem too, apparently.
Yeah, please for everything.
Yeah. Okay,
But if my neighbor puts their fence on the property line, I'm not gonna put up a fence on the property line
No.
too, so.
Right.
that's what that Word document was, I sent you.
Yeah,
Just everything.
so
I
yeah,
found
we
about-
do have it in there.
I went nuts looking for that.
Mhm.
The search engine on this thing stinks.
Mhm.
It really does.
Mr. Darnell, did you have a question? Okay, I'm sorry, but,
I guess, but
okay. Just
If-
want to make sure.
If I might recommend this, we table this for tonight
Yeah,
and work on the exceptions, think it through.
yeah,
Because this isn't gonna make or break anything tonight.
no,
Right.
And 'cause I have my thoughts both back and forth.
right. And where do you draw the line?
And where do you draw the line?
Mhm.
But I think there should be something in there that clearly states that you can repair a fence. Even a certain number of posts.
Yeah.
As Mr. Gray mentioned,
Or I would even think about putting something in there that, if you move a corner post, it's not considered a repair. Because then if you move a corner post, somebody could put it on the wrong side of that corner or whatever, and then you have problems. So I would even think about maybe putting something in there about that.
okay, but my thoughts are, is if we're going to permit people to replace posts, they have to go back on the same line of what the old post came out. I don't care if it's corner or otherwise. I don't have a problem with what you suggest.
Because what I'm thinking is like most posts are cemented in the ground.
Yes.
So unless you dig out that,
That's it.
Mine aren't.
so unless you dig out that concrete, because people are lazy at times. If they don't dig up that concrete, they'll be like, well, I'll just put the post over here or over here or over here.
Yes.
And that could make it
It could,
not in the right place. So really like sit down and think about it.
yeah, that's something to think
Come
about.
up with how to make that work.
Yes.
how about something as simple as long as the fence line is not relocated from what's being improved upon?
Right.
The original position.
I'm okay with that too. That makes it even simpler.
Simple is good.
Simple is good. But I hope you
Yeah.
ladies understand what I was getting at.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Because I know myself, my daughter replaced her fence, they got blown over not this past winter, but the winter before. It was a vinyl fence. And unfortunately, the installer is long gone and they didn't do such a hot job as concreting that in. The new fence people came and just lifted the fence post right up out of the ground with all the cement attached to it.
Mr. Gray.
So do we want to get ticked for attacking here about the onus of review survey, not full permit? Is the city capable of inspecting their submit process?
Inspecting. This thing's
Yeah,
really loud.
it's
I'm
really loud.
sorry.
We can barely
Is the
hear you.
city able to inspect a fence when a permit is pulled? So we don't have issues of some accident, some don't have to inspect. Take pictures, put on a JPEG and put it in a file.
We could ask if the.
Well, I mean, is it really the city's responsibility to make sure a contractor uses cement? You know what I mean?
Some yards you can't because.
Right, because in my yard, I can't on my one side because I have storm sewer in my backyard, right next to a post. And I don't know where that trunk is coming into that storm sewer, or where it's going. I don't know which way, I don't know what direction it's going. So I think that's why on the one side of my yard, they did not do cement. And that's why all the posts, the 4 posts are leaning. It's because they don't know where it's at.
This would also help alleviate the issue of property disputes in the future of where the fence is. If the city has the capability to take a picture and put it in the file with the pins in, you know, the property marked, there is no further homeowner disputes. You can reference it to the permit, to the survey, and with the JPEG file.
Right.
It comes in all.
We can ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I thought of concerning fences on our permits, having gone through this once with, twice now with my daughter. We pulled a permit for the first fence. that went in. It would be nice if the city sent an email out to the permit holder that the fence is complete, inspection, you know, whatever drive-by inspection they do or whatnot, the city satisfied. So that they verify that the fence didn't go over the property line, whatever. See what I'm saying? Like, I've got to call the fence company that did my daughter's fence since last winter. I couldn't believe he did it that late in the year, but he did. And he came off the property line, fortunately came into her property line. And he said, yeah, he'll be back this spring and fix it. You know, he thinks I'm crazy, but he came in 14 inches off the property line. So it would be nice if the city, I mean, they don't have to spend a ton of money doing this. They emailed me the permit, and emailed me something back and said, okay, you're good.
So you just want notification that they went out and did the follow-up afterwards.
That the city satisfied.
Don't you have to provide a sketch when you pull the permit?
Yes.
So you do have to provide a sketch, but making sure that a private contractor follow the sketch would be on the homeowner and not the city. Because the city is just concerned with it being on your property line or inside your property lines, and not did your contractor do the right job. That would, I would say, would fall back on the homeowner to make sure that your contractor put your fence where you want your fence. Because as a third party, you could give me a drawing and say, this is where I want my fence, and I could be like, oh yeah, that looks good, and then you come home and be like, oh, absolutely not. So I think monitoring location as to what the homeowner wants, that should be on them.
I've kind of mixed emotions about that. I understand your point, Michelle. However, if you build a house, and you hire a contractor to build it, somebody's going to pull the building permits. If the contractor, and you know more about this than I do, if the contractor doesn't adhere to the building code, it's not the property owner that gets chastised, it's the contractor, correct?
It's whoever contracted for the work.
Yeah.
But our zoning says that we check to make sure that it's on the applicant's property, or
Yes.
property line. So that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at did the contractor put it according to the drawing.
I understand.
So
That can be changed.
As
And this,
it stands
I-
now,
Yeah.
according to Holly, I have the email. We don't require the fence to be on the property line. We just require the visible pins are surveyed prior to installation to verify it is within the property boundary.
Right.
If the property owner wants the fence inside that boundary, we would still inspect to verify it meets the guideline. So again, if it's in or on the property line, pins are located, that's the way that legislation is.
yes,
Do we have a zoning inspector?
we do have a zoning. inspector, yes, somebody who goes out and does that. Chuck is doing
Chuck
something
is,
like
yes,
that?
yes, right.
I think we have a lot to look at on this one for exceptions and who's gonna be responsible for making sure it's on the line, because I kind of agree with Michelle that it should be the homeowner's responsibility or the contractor's responsibility to make sure that they say if they want it right on those pins or right inside those pins, but if they go outside of those pins, and that's not what they were told, I don't think that should be the city to come in and say,
But if it goes over the pins,
Yes,
right,
Yes.
yes,
so you want it this way, but you don't want to go the other way.
if it goes over the pins, then
Over
it's
the-
not meeting our zoning code, and
Right.
we have a way to enforce it. But if, say that somebody's putting up a fence for a dog run, and the contractor puts it up in the wrong spot, that's between you and your contractor. Not for the
Right.
city to come in and say, your contractor messed up, we'll take care of it for you.
I'm not even too sure that we didn't state in one of the previous ordinance meetings that if you do a fence like that, if it doesn't come even close to the property line, a permit is not required, or locating the pins is not required. I'd have to go back and look in the minutes to see, I know it's not in the ordinance, that I
Yeah,
can
I
see,
don't see anything in the ordinance
but I
about
do
that.
remember that conversation.
Yeah.
if the fence is within the pins,
No, let's say, for example, you've got a huge yard, and you want to put a dog run in there. It's not even coming anywhere close to the property lines. It's
okay,
20 feet
I-
away from it.
I got you now,
Why should I have to locate my property fence?
right. Right, and I kind of agree with that, I
Yeah.
agree with that, I would think that if you're within your pins and you're doing like a dog run, or you have, or just say your yard is fenced already, and you have a pool in the backyard,
Right,
and you want to put a fence halfway across
Which
your
is-
yard,
yeah.
which is inside that fence that's already there, my opinion, I don't think you should need to, because you're inside already your fence, you're already inside your zone.
those are the kinds of examples that we tried to address. Remember going through that, Rob? Remember the outcome of it? Nope. Because I do remember the conversation. He said, was sleeping. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
And Michelle, I'm not arguing against it.
No, I absolutely understand that. And I'm torn on that because not everybody is upstanding individuals, and I could see somebody coming in and being like, yeah, I'm gonna put up a dog run and here's my picture, and then they go put it up, and the next thing you know, they got their whole yard fenced in and went, well, it's just my dog run.
Right,
So it's.
Yep.
Yeah, so at least this way, even if you're doing something small, at least we know for now, it's gonna be on your property, not your neighbor's property.
we have to go back through my minutes.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know, because I probably wasn't there, so.
Okay.
We will come up with some
Come up with
repair.
some ideas, repairs, and we'll
Okay,
put them all together.
I'll do the same.
And I know you wanted to talk about the Dollar Generals, Dollar Trees, Dollar Quest. And unfortunately, I did not get a chance to look at that yesterday because of my work schedule.
Okay,
So I would like some time to
sure.
review, but if I could hear the backstory on it, that would,
I had several people contact me about several communities across the nation that put moratoriums on dollar stores because they're so prolific. They actually will weed out and destroy other businesses. I actually have some more information that I printed out for everybody. Pass it down. I talked to the gentleman who's the council president of North Royalton today. They've got a moratorium that's still in effect. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday, I think it's the 17th, May 17th, they're going to readdress it again.
I'm sorry, what's the reason?
North Royalton.
Okay.
as in the email I stated, I know Cleveland did it, Brunswick has done it, North Royalton has. And I think there's a whole cast of other cities that have. The problem they've got is a lot of people thought that that would increase income taxes to the cost. And it doesn't really. And it also actually helps destroy other local grocery stores. I don't think Giant Eagle or Marks would be real appreciative of a store like this coming in and destroying their business. I know I gave everybody a whole ton of information. And I'd be glad to share that with anybody who wants that these stores aren't real healthy for a community. The other thing I found, and some of that information I sent out, is these stores are typically located in almost poverty-stricken areas. Okay, and to that point, they've also been noted to attract criminal elements. If you watch the news from time to time, you'll see Dollar Generals get robbed. I think our police department has got enough work to do. But aside from that, there's a problem with Dollar Generals that's causing all these communities to put moratoriums on it. And all I'm asking for is that we consider a moratorium so that the council as a whole can look into this and see what you think. Because you can look up anything on the internet and find any information you want, good and bad.
Right. I mean, we already have 2 out of the 3 in the city.
Yeah, well, that was the other point. When I talked to, I think that, I can't remember the gentleman's name, I know his first name. That much I did remember. He said, I told him that we have 2 dollar stores, Family Dollar and Dollar Tree, that are almost in the same plaza. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, really. And this Dollar General wants to move in down the street from them, real close to an apartment building. And he said that their city, they started blocking them back in 2020. They've got another ordinance that you have copied all that's in that packet. I just can't. What they're doing. So it's just something I want council to think about. I know after reading it, I know one of the documents I think I emailed everybody lists a lot of the communities across the nation. California is one of the few that hasn't done this. Almost every other state in the union has communities that have put a moratorium on dollar stores. They'll limit so many of them in their community. I told this gentleman from North Royalton, we have one on the east side of our community over by Porter, one on the west side, it's up here 306 and Lakeshore. And I said, I can't tell you how many miles they are probably 5 miles or less.
Yeah.
He said, that's pretty close to that. I said, well, they want to put a third one in between the 2. So, and this much I will tell you, there's already an organization that considers Mentor Lake to be a poverty city. When I found this out, yeah, you look funny that Mentor Public Schools considers Mentor Lake to be a poverty city. They ran a poverty exercise, I think they called it, that included Lake Elementary and one other elementary school.
Like
That's so that
Orchard Hollow, because some of, depending on where in the city, some of them go to Orchard Hollow.
it could be. I know it has to do with Title I money that they get.
Yes.
Well, I was kind of insulted that they consider our city to be a poverty city because somebody else has also emailed me a thing from Cleveland.com data, which I'll be glad to share with everybody by email. It's too big to print out. It's on the mean incomes of all the communities in this area, in the Cleveland area, and we're in there. It's kind of an interesting thing, and it's based on the census of the state.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're interested,
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Comment, please?
Yeah.
I would ask if we can kind of move on a moratorium or a resolution, ordinance, whatever you all want to call it, at a quick pace before Dollar General comes with actual plans to planning and zoning. Because after they have made an approach to them, my understanding is that this moratorium will do no good. But they've already got the paperwork filed. So we need to kind of roll this along here.
Yes, yes.
There's some really funny parallel paths going on at the same time, because I wasn't aware of the things that you brought to the meeting tonight in that way. But having heard about that, I started to understand what it would do to our local markets. And so I spoke to someone who said, oh, by the way, and this is a very big grocery retailer. He said, we just hired someone from a Dollar General in loss prevention here. And I said, well, that's interesting. And he said the loss prevention troubles at the Dollar Generals are very high. He said this person had the inside skinny on how Dollar General, what the payroll issues were, what the loss issues were, how they treated the issues of paying their employees, employee absences, all those things, and how corporate looked at loss. That tells us a lot about corporate behavior and how they look at loss. And he was astonished in a very negative way to what this person who had just left Dollar General because he couldn't take that work anymore. And his last comment to me before I left the conversation, he said, they chew through managers. So you never have consistency over months and months and months with anybody in the building regarding personnel, regarding consistent staffing, regarding safety and concerns like that. Corporate doesn't show the concern that might be needed in any community, let alone our own community. And I kind of find it, you brought this up tonight, because I just was on a parallel path trying to understand that whole company. I have studied the other two across the street. They're owned by the same company. They're owned by investment bankers. They will cohabitate into one spot. If a Dollar General shows up, so I have another empty spot across the street. That's their corporate plan. They're not owned by people who think about food. They think about dollars. They don't think about community. They think about holding on to land long enough so it grows up and having a building that they can sell. And they use traffic to manage the money. They don't provide a service to a community around employment or good food. It's just not what they do. It's not their business model.
Thank you.
I know this topic is a real eye opener to me. Dollar General stores are so prolific. You can't. My wife and I joke about it when we go back to Pennsylvania, in our own town. It's like if it's an empty piece of property, there's a Dollar General.
They all have copies.
And I do agree with Mrs. Donnell. I knew them on our side. If the council decides we need to do this, we need to do it quickly.
Please. Because I don't want to, I think it was Broadview Heights or Cleveland Heights didn't move fast enough. They were trying to block ones coming in with them. And it didn't roll fast enough. Even if it's a moratorium for 6 months, 8 months, whatever you guys feel would work, to really look at this before we make this jump, please.
In all honesty, I do know that there was one community that had a moratorium for several months. And they rescinded it. I don't know who that was. I don't know.
No, come on in.
Guys, come here.
Go ahead.
There was one community I read online, I can't remember who it was, that they finally rescinded their moratorium.
Well, and I guess I'm going to direct a question to our law director then on this too. We have to do it in a way that we're not going to be setting ourselves up for a lawsuit for violating anyone's constitutional rights for opening up business or anything like that. So we'll have to talk to him to find out how.
If you read through that stuff I sent to the links to, there's a sample legislation in there. And so many communities have done this. And I think a lot of their ordinances are in there. But I'm sure that's been challenged by law, by all means.
Right, and like I said, I always err, like, when it comes down to those kinds of things, the last thing I want to do is be on the news because we are getting sued for violating somebody's constitutional rights or something, so. Let's pose that question to him just to be safe.
Do you remember what we had a moratorium for?
Marijuana.
That's right. I knew we had one for something.
dispensaries.
Yes, couldn't remember what it was.
Maybe look at that.
Legislation in place, right?
Because maybe this could resemble that.
So we could actually get
Limit
an
the marijuana
an ordinance in
dispensaries.
place, the moratorium. Yeah,
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We had the moratorium in there just for a brief,
Right,
several months, so
Right.
that we could get the legislation ironed out.
right. And so we can find out more about what the House bill was
Right,
as it was being presented.
yes, and I believe Mr. Lyons suggested the moratorium
Yes.
for that.
Dispensaries. You know, that's where.
I could add something real quick.
Uh-huh.
Your best defense, all of this, is a clear, well thought out plan. Which we don't have. We really don't.
You're talking
A
about
plan
community,
for
plan,
all this.
Yeah.
Like a community development.
like a vision.
So right now, Dollar General is part of the plan. It is zoned for that. And I'll just leave it at that. But without a plan,
But that's,
it's tough.
but you can put a moratorium in to stop them. Lots of communities are, lots. And that's why,
Like I said,
But I think everyone would ultimately love to see a plan.
oh, yeah,
absolutely, but I'm saying, let's do moratorium now, let's put the brakes on before we get bills, because after we get bills, it doesn't matter. True?
before anybody spends any more money.
Right,
Like I said, my goal is to give council time to look over the whole picture. And if council decides that we want to move forward and let Dollar General move in there, so be it. If I'm not mistaken, some of the ordinances that I read over were not based at Dollar General. They were based on the size of stores that they created.
right, they're called small box discount stores.
Yeah.
12,000 to 15,000 square feet and under, with the bulk of their property, or their bulk of their product being $10 and under.
Now, some of those articles that I sent you folks links to mentioned about food deserts. Food deserts, a
Okay.
place where there isn't a whole lot of good, healthy produce available. And Dollar General does indeed fill that need for those areas. We're not exactly in the food desert. Not with Mark's up here and Giant Eagle further.
I don't think I've ever been into Dollar General. They have food, they have fresh.
Some of them do.
Some of
yes.
them,
But the ones in the area don't.
No,
no, okay,
Okay.
okay.
They're noted for their higher price items when you look at what they have per ounce
Like quantity versus.
Yeah.
quality. So I think Mr. Morris also included the things that he sent to you, things that I had copied down, the reasons why not to have them in the community.
a lot of information.
I know too, I know from what I've researched on is a lot of people think that it's a dollar store, so they're getting a deal because it's called a dollar store, but if you really sit down and do the math,
It's
it's
not
really
good,
not a deal like you think you're getting.
right, and it's not a healthy option we should encourage when we have grocery stores here that give back to the community also and offer a better food choice for our community.
Have my notes, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Right.
talk about the red.
I think what we are running into, and for example, when I'm talking to Holly, service department just did some work over on Sunset, did some dishing work, put in whatever they have to put in. And the resident was wondering, can I still put certain things out in the right of way? And the last time ordinance committee met to talk about this, what I heard was, let's keep things the same. And I just want to clarify so that we can tell the guys in the service department. this is what we think should go there. And this is what we think does not belong in the right way, if anything. And what Holly gave me to pass along is, the drainage. There's something in there about the maintenance and just other things that she's seen that she pulled from also the state. What just really clarification from council. If
So the chapter 1024 is our current legislation.
yes,
Actually, 1022 is a public right of way.
1022 is the public
right.
And I think we're just talking about drainage though, right?
Well, I would say, there are certain things. When you look at 102402 talks about gutters, drains, ditches, things like that. And, it talks about maintaining the tree lawn. And, it mentions the word nuisance. Now, what's our definition of nuisance? And this is not something I'm sure we're gonna solve tonight, but
No.
it's just, maybe it's updating, all of these. So we have a better understanding when residents say, "Hey, I want to do this. What can I do? What can I do?" I think we realize in the right way, there shouldn't be shrubbery, there shouldn't be fences, but beyond that.
I've been talking to somebody who I trust their wisdom. They made a comment about we shouldn't permit anything creepy and I can't think what the other word was. Anyhow, and we're too close to the street that caused damage to the city equipment in snowfall. And I thought, well, pointy is kind of subjective, but the idea was so nobody would do something stupid like put nails and broken glass out there or something. And I wanted to add one more thing to that, so that nobody covers up any of the catch basins or inlets to the storm sewer. Because I know down at my son's property, I'm constantly reminding him to scrape the gravel away from the inlet, which he does. But and his property is a prime example why it should be permissible to put certain things out there. His property on the Pinehurst side is constantly getting turf. And it makes it a real bear to cut the grass. Real bear. But some of those ruts are almost as bad as the pictures Mr. Gray had at his property. So I don't want anybody to block the storm sewer inlets, any of that stuff. And I don't want people to put stuff out there that's gonna hurt anybody or so close to the road, it's gonna cause damage to the city equipment.
Right. And I think it was you that I told that there was a house in Menor on Lake Shore, between here and, what's that street? Heisley, no, not Heisley, before Heisley, where Shore is. Hopkins.
Hopkins, yes.
There was a house on the north side of Lake Shore that had rebar coming out of their
Yes,
lawn. It was maybe about, I don't know, 6, 8 inches high.
yeah, that,
It's removed. I think they got,
Thank God.
Someone said something, of course they should have, but he had it there so no one would park in his.
that's crazy. I've got gravel in front of my house and the neighbors are using, we don't use it anymore. But I thought it was easier to mow the lawn than it was. It gives the neighbor some place to park their overflow cars. I don't mind as long as they don't turf my yard.
So did you have some suggestions of nuisance?
Not really, no. If that language maybe doesn't belong, I'm just define, what is nuisance.
That could be that sharp pointy stuff.
Well, you know, when we went through this with, you know, when Jim Sales was around, we talked about weights of things, size of things, and we kind of got away from everything that we had originally talked about.
So we wanna
Work on that one.
work on that one too. We'll put it as our homework.
Are we trying to define nuisance?
Yes.
Define nuisance.
Okay. I'll go back to the simplicity side, sharp pointy things.
Last.
Yeah. I mean, especially on my street where I've got kids occasionally walking up and down the street to school, you know. I hate to see anybody put stuff out that would cause a car. It's bad enough, we have one house on our street that wants to set garbage out from the minute they determine it's garbage. And I hate that. One of these days, he's gonna put some stuff out there and call the city and ask them to send somebody down. Oh, take it back in the garage.
There's an ordinance for that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Just like we have an ordinance against roosters, and I had a neighbor that had a rooster for a while.
Oh.
The rooster got mad at the chickens and the neighbor's kids, and the rooster's gone now. He wasn't bitter, but he's gone.
Anything else on the table for tonight?
Trees.
Trees. Talk about trees.
They've been tabled for how many years now?
Too many.
Do you want to tackle that the next one?
Well, we can start it now.
Kind of tell us what you're
Just fill
feeling,
us
so I know
in,
what to look
yeah.
at, because I'm new to this, so.
Okay. I believe, and President Johnson can correct me, it's the trees that came out of the commercial areas, like parking lots and stuff. We violated our own city ordinances because it says you have to have a certain amount of trees left. Andrews Plaza is the closest when it comes to adhering to that. And I'm not sure that they're correct.
So are we talking about trees in the business district ordinance and
Yes.
what has to be green space in that and not like the actual 1034 tree ordinance?
I believe it may have been part of 1034. Do you remember, Rob?
Chapter was specific.
I could go back through my notes and find it from previous shows.
Okay. Because I started looking at 1034, so. And 1036, which is tree preservation.
1034 had how many parking spaces per tree?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but I wanted to see which one that they were referring
That
to.
sounds right.
7. Last ordinance meeting was trees were brought up. Recommend to go back down to 5. Cars and 1 tree, mature tree takes care of it.
That is not in 1034. That might be in the business district. What was that?
1036.
1036.04 tree regulatory zones.
Okay, public tree regulatory zones. Okay.
abolish the tree board?
Yes, that's,
Okay, it makes reference to that.
um, section E. States and there's still 5 trees, 1 tree per 5 parking spaces.
E is the industrial.
What was that about?
E is industrial tree regulatory zone, we don't have an industrial district.
I think it's D,
Yeah, it's
Commercial
D2.
building tree.
E is commercial.
D2.
Commercial building tree regular 2 trees with a 2-inch diameter greater when measured feet. Each of tree shall be provided for every 5 on-site parking spaces. That's what we're talking about.
Industrial.
Rob, do you remember what it is that we need to do with this ordinance?
But we need to compare this to the zoning regulation for that.
Yes,
Okay.
we're going to try to have a percentage of green space required.
Yeah, D2 says a minimum of 70%.
Of trees are supposed to be associated with parking area,
Yes,
which is,
in conjunction with the parking space.
which is what, like none of the plazas?
Right.
The only one that comes close is possibly Giant Eagle, if you consider that little green space in the back of the building.
Yeah, it's not associated with the parking area.
No, it's not.
So Marks is the only one that comes close.
And therefore,
Far off by both the size of what would be required by that ordinance.
At the business district. That's together. Well, 58.
perhaps D should be changed instead of commercial building, it should be business building.
Business district
Yes,
to where it coincides with what's in the business district zoning.
we don't have any industrial areas anymore.
Right,
Right.
just remove that section.
Yes,
Because it can be confusing.
right.
space has to. If there's something in the business district, I'm looking to see if there's like a requirement for green space and a layout on that, or how that gets planned out.
There's a requirement for buffering between residential.
I know there's the
and business,
vegetation, the dense vegetation buffering between business district and residential.
One thing we talked about was basing it kind of on Willoughby's 1161.12 parking lot landscaping and screening,
1161.12.
1161.12,
Okay, so
their
that up.
ordinances.
Okay.
This is just my book,
What,
my book. I have pages that weren't taken out. So I'm saying, why is gasoline pumps in here twice? Under the same section, but it wasn't removed, so that is one.
1161.12. Yeah.
Parking areas in any district designated to accommodate 20 or more vehicles, a minimum of 5% of the parking lot should be planted as landscaping island areas.
This is pretty in-depth.
Yes.
So was ours, except, you know,
They got
Do we know how many parking spaces are over at Mark's? Do you have a record of that?
well, there's a record somewhere.
Yeah.
Brent took account at one point, I don't know what it
Yeah.
was, but
The fire department should have a record of that, as I'm sure the zoning department does.
Yeah, because when Brent did it,
he calculated how many,
right, they were probably.
they were pretty close, they were good, you know,
Right.
compared to everybody else. but Granted, they didn't really fit the rest of the criteria, which is the however many feet EVPN or all that stuff, but.
So we just need to make them the same one way or the other.
We need to figure out what we want to do.
Right.
As a city, what kind of green space do we want to require, you know? Because right now, nobody's in compliance with the ordinance, so what do we really want?
And looking over at Mark's, where you put the trees without taking away parking spots.
Giant Eagle.
or Giant Eagle,
They have very little space where they could put
right?
trees.
They could base off of their plow cycle where they push the snow and then put in concrete pillars, like Carl's Marathon has. Like, that's the ordinance. Like,
I'm not sure that
I'm not
much
sure
snow.
that would be,
So not to hinder Giant Eagle's ability for all year,
yeah,
they would have to come up with a plan, traffic flow docking, unloaded, snow plowing. Because it normally go by the loop stop. So that's where I would start with trees.
oh,
Make that
I don't know what you're
boardwalk,
talking
like
about.
a long designated walkway, enough to allow for parts on either side, and they can put trees down. Or incorporate with their parks. There's a way to do it. And shades of the structure, 8 trees per parking spot, so it's
Yes, and what I don't know too is the way that's all kind of intermingled and intertwined together. Whose boundaries fall where
For what, for the
For
Giant Eagle
what?
side versus that plaza that's in the back.
versus,
There's definitely property lines there.
and you got the bank one and all that kind of. like,
Chase.
Whose section is what up there, which would only do a map and see where all those boundaries lie.
In reality,
Yeah.
it's up to them to figure out how
How
to
to
meet
put it
whatever
there.
requirement we decide is appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're not meeting it right now, is
No.
what it is. So
No,
we're gonna give them something that's less onerous than what currently is on the books.
Yeah.
But, and then we'll give them X amount of time to get it done, whether it's, you know, X number of years or whatever. So next time they're redoing their parking area, some compliance date by which it must be done.
yeah,
I wonder how hard it would be for them to become compliant with what we currently have. Rather than change it.
They good luck trying to get everybody compliant with those rules and who's gonna measure all the damn trees to be a certain size and.
Deeper up there.
A lot more onerous than I think we need to be.
I don't even know what a 2 tree is, like, I don't know what that means.
You know what that is with green?
A deep tree description.
You know, I think it did have something to do with the diameter.
It's the diameter of the tree.
There's, we talked about that before.
Its diameter, ball height.
Oh,
Could be.
Let's see.
I think the reality is we want green space in some,
Diameter at
I don't
breast
think we
height
need to be
or
overly
DH.
onerous into how they do it.
Diameter at
We
breast
just want to
height.
have something.
Is that on a 5-foot person or a 6-foot person?
Right, I'm short, so you're gonna have some short trees.
Or skinny trees.
1.4
Well, I don't know
meters,
if I'd go that far, but you're gonna have some short trees.
1.4 meters.
1.4 meters? Thank you.
any suggestions on which way we should go?
Yes, no, it is.
What I'm looking at, like in Willoughby's, they take out the DBH, but they talk about like, there has to be like 6 foot of branches have to be 6 feet above, so it doesn't get in the way of like vision and that kind of stuff, so maybe incorporating something like that. to
But now that it's senior too.
So,
Flash to level 5.
tall,
Yes.
we'll have to look at it.
The reason I suggest going like, approaching like Giant Eagle. That plan, see if they can comply, what they come up with, to comply with our current ordinance. And if they say we can't do it, we could do this, then perhaps that ought to be. Close to which we told them.
whatever we do, we need to do the same for everybody.
Yes,
Right.
I agree. We can look at what Marks did and say, okay, that's what we're gonna require, or what they can do.
We just have to have a minimum. That's the-
It means that Marks somewhat complied, as you pointed out. That's a place to start.
I'm sorry,
And start too. We gotta shoot that thing.
I know.
Maybe we ought to look at Marks and how they comply and how they would be able to comply even further if they needed to. And use that as a standard. Which to say, okay, this is it. So they don't meet our current standard. But what, this is a standard we're gonna ask people to meet.
Which standard is that?
Whatever Mark says.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying. Like if they have room, we'll maybe another 3 or 2, because we don't currently meet our current code.
right.
That would be what the code would be. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's underlying.
You also gotta figure out, all right, how does Marathon get up to, the same level? There's a lot of, we gotta look at all the businesses in our,
They're good. There's gonna be some people that.
Because Marathon no longer falls under a gas station because they got rid of their gas.
correct.
They have the full concrete beds off these pictures.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you know how far off Marks was from being compliant? Like how many?
Probably happened somewhere and I can look for it, but
Yeah, if you could look for it. I say we start there.
Yeah.
And then,
I would think that would be the easiest way. You know?
I know Brent did that. Assessment.
So I think it's Ordinance April and others.
It's probably. planning,
Well,
zoning.
We looked at that,
yeah. it's not
the
bad.
planning and
Yeah.
zoning, and I thought we forwarded our recommendation.
It's probably planning and zoning last year, wasn't
It's still here.
Al?
it?
No, we
when
looked
he
at
was Mark's
Mark's.
stuff.
As a percentage.
Well, I think it was more last year. But I think it was a couple of years back. I know this has come up in the ordinance committee multiple times.
So are we done with the trees?
Well, why? Are you getting ready to tell us something?
Well, I
For
just
now.
assumed,
Mhm.
which
That's up to the
I shouldn't do. The CRA review that I did, have you looked at that? Really? I'm surprised.
It was last year, it was June of last year that.
Was it?
Planning and zoning talked about it.
Based on you bringing up the disparity of benefits, I was gonna do some,
Yes.
Yes,
some work,
yes.
and I presented that to Holly.
We talked about it, one of the last meetings we had. That's been 2 meetings. And we never came to consensus.
I do have it in email form, I emailed it to her.
or, do you know when you emailed it to her? Maybe.
Well,
Do you have papers there?
well, I think it's late, in the-
Yeah.
you know, it's. But, so I reviewed current. And I just went through an analysis and I proposed something for you to consider. And pass
Email it out to the rest of us.
on. No, I just did it to Holly. I don't have,
No, I'm saying, did she email it?
That's what I'm
I
trying,
don't
that's what
know.
we're trying
Yeah.
to
I don't know.
determine.
And I just look, I don't even have a date on it.
Do you have any idea when it would be?
Jeez, 3 weeks ago? 3.5 weeks ago.
And I'm already at the end of March and I don't see anything from Holly.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was hoping maybe she forwarded that to the.
Right.
ordinance committee.
Well, it's in a form that it's best, more expedient for you to just look at your leisure and then, you know, I just,
Can you email that to us directly? Yeah. Or email for all.
or I can just have Holly email it to you.
Okay.
I didn't ask Holly to even, you know, I thought
Yeah.
she would know what to do. So
Okay.
that's why I say I assumed. And,
I will email
That's it.
her right now.
That's it.
As we're talking.
next, and I would just say ask who could deal with it at the next.
Just email her
Thank you.
now. So I didn't want that to.
I'll follow up with it too.
So now that we have lots of homework, when do we want to schedule our next meeting? I like doing it now instead of at the council meetings, that
That's
way.
When you get in mind. Council meetings on the 10th and 24th.
Right. Is the 5th too soon to give all of our,
That's good.
well, I was talking about the moratorium for all of us to gather all the information we need.
Yeah.
Is that enough time?
The 5th is coming for me. So perhaps we can have something ready for that, if that's what we choose to do. We can be ready for the next council meeting.
We wouldn't be ready for the next council meeting because it
Because
would be on the
agendas.
agenda for that night.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it would have to go to the following council meeting.
We want to meet before that. And I mean, this, I'm not working, it's up to you to.
Right. Well, I mean, this weekend is out for me
Sure.
to do any type of research.
You just want to leave it the 5th and what,
I would, yeah, because there's a zoning meeting on Monday.
okay, we're going to meet after the agenda meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So Thursday. Six, no, I mean, I can do 6:30.
Up to you.
Leave work early.
6:30?
6:30.
What date?
So that is going to be Thursday, May 5th at 6:30 will be the next meeting.
Don't we have to announce that at the council meeting?
Oh, yeah, we do. So we can't do that.
Yeah,
So we have to do it on the 12th.
or do we?
It's gotta be
Yeah.
posted, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be posted.
Okay.
So, sorry,
What
We're gonna-
constitutes as posted?
I'm sorry.
What constitutes as posted? Does it have to be at the council meeting or posting it on the websites and the posting spots? Will that suffice to be able to let you do 5-5?
It has to be legally announced at the public meeting.
So the, you do it on the 12th?
The 12th. Same time.
Yes.
I will not be here for that.
Should we Zoom you?
No, I will be visiting my parents.
They can join. Okay, so May 12th at 6:30.
Yes.
And I apologize that we did not receive your information, but
No. Everyone's been busy.
all right, so at 8:18, we will adjourn if we have nothing else. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Participation.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Oh, really?
Summer.
Oh, yeah.
See them over there, Swarovski crystals spread out, needles. Get more of our business card.
Okay, so you want the CRA review?
Yes, please, thank you. We give you time.